Good afternoon, everybody. This is Alexa El Jamil from Closer's Choice. Thank you for joining us today for our Florida Homestead Check Lunch and Learn webinar. We are excited to have you guys with us. Today we are joined by a few of our Florida Homestead Check representatives, so we are excited to have them on here. And I will turn it over to them in a few moments to explain a little bit further about what Florida Homestead Check is and all the important details you need to know. Real quickly, I just wanted to go over a few kind of housekeeping rules while we're waiting for everybody to join. The first thing is on our GoToWebinars, if you've joined one of our webinars before, I'm sure you already know this, but you all are muted. So you cannot talk to us, you can't talk to each other. Never fear though, you can submit questions to us. So in your GoToWebinar pane, there is a question section. You can go ahead and type your questions in there, and we will be monitoring that throughout the webinar. If it's something I can answer right away, I will do my best to answer that for you. But if it's something that I think maybe everyone needs to know an answer to, or perhaps it's a question for our Florida Homestead Check partners directly, we're going to save that, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end after we go through our demo of the integration itself as well. So either type them in during the webinar or save them until the Q&A session at the end. We promise we'll answer all of your questions though. I do want to also let you know that there are some handouts available through the GoToWebinar menu pane there under our handouts section. So you'll see 5 listed there. There's 4 of an informative nature about what Florida Homestead Check is and why you might want to add that into your closings. And then there's also our user guide for how to use the integration with Florida Homestead Check in Closer's Choice. It's got step-by-step instructions, and it's got some screenshots in there. So if you want to start using this, you can, and you have that as a backup. If you have not downloaded our user guide prior to the end of the webinar, you can always access that in Closer's Choice. So to access that in Closer's Choice, you'll come up to our Services Gateway toolbar up here at the top and select the Gateway button. It's the very first button to the left. That will open up our companion website called Closer's Link, which you should see now. Come on down to our Quick Support section here on the left-hand side, and that will open up all of our user guides for Closer's Choice. And so you can sort by type here. The one for Florida Homestead Check is going to be under our General Services Gateway option here. And it will display all of our Services Gateway manuals. You're looking for our Florida Homestead Check user guide, and just click the blue download icon there to download that user guide to your computer. If you want any of the informative materials from Florida Homestead Check, we're going to put some contact information up at the end. You can always reach out to us here at Closer's Choice, and we can forward that to you, or you can reach out to Florida Homestead Check directly for more information. So don't forget to go ahead and grab those handouts before we close out. I do want to also mention that our website, webinar.closerschoice.com, will have a recording of this webinar. Give us until probably about tomorrow to load it up there, but it will be under the past webinar section up at the top, and then it will be the very first one in the list. So if you want to go back and kind of rewatch this webinar, or someone in your office wasn't able to attend, they can always watch that recording there. So don't fear about that. Lastly, I do want to go over that you should be running the very latest and greatest version of Closer's Choice to use Florida Homestead Check. That will make sure you've got everything you need to submit your order and receive it back flawlessly. To check what date you're running as far as software is concerned, we're going to come down here to the bottom of our main screen of Closer's Choice. And where I'm highlighting in yellow at the very bottom right below the Post Cash button, you'll see a date there. Now you want to be running at least a 10-10-19 version. Okay, again, that's 10-10-19. If you're on our web, you automatically have our latest and greatest version, so you are all set. If you are not on our web, go ahead and give us a call, and we can schedule that update with you for a time that best meets your needs. Also, keep checking our webinar website. We will be posting 3 more webinars for next month. So go to the same webinar you registered for today and where you can access your recordings. And you'll see our calendar of our upcoming webinars for the month of November. Those should be posted by the end of the week, this week or next week. So don't miss out on any others here. So that is it for my housekeeping items. I'm going to turn it over to our awesome partners at Florida Homestead Check. Today joining us, we have Mr. Blake Deal, Mr. Peter Legeza, and Mr. Bobby Reagan. So gentlemen, if you would, take it away.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Blake Deal. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Florida Homestead Check, and I've also been a real estate attorney for the last 23 years. I've done a little bit over 10,000 closings at the last count. Most of them have been residential. I've done quite a few commercial as well, but Florida Homestead Check was born out of my residential real estate closing practice. What happened was, over the years, I have always, at the end of a closing, given a little speech about homestead, basically said where to file, when to file, the form to file, and just given them a quick introduction that it would invoke the Save Our Homes Act and hold down their increases in their assessed value to 3% a year or CPI, whichever was less. And then it would benefit them with the $50,000 standard exemption, which would save them about $1,000 a year on their taxes. Then I would always put a brightly colored homestead filing information sheet in their closing papers, and that would send them on their way. And we just always kind of thought that took care of all the homestead stuff. A lot of times the realtors would interrupt at that point and say that they would be sending a card to the buyer to let them know to remember to file for homestead in February. And that was pretty much the end of it. And what happened is, I had a client come in my office really upset one day. They had done a closing with our office. They had gotten their property tax bill about a year later, and it was about almost $10,000 a year higher than they thought it was going to be. So they had gone down to the property appraiser's office and gotten upset with them, and found out that there was a huge error in the market value on the tax rolls at the time that the closing was handled. They were very upset to learn that once the closing had happened, that they would not be able to correct the error in the market value, and that they had essentially lost all of that portability that they had accrued over the years. They were very upset. They got into it with the property appraiser, who told them that it was their real estate attorney or title agent's responsibility to identify these things. They then went and got upset with their realtor, who told them that it was the real estate attorney or title agent's responsibility. And it ended up back in my lap. And it ended up in my lap with a threat to file a lawsuit against me for basically $10,000 a year for the rest of their life. The net present value of that, I think the claim amount was about $485,000. I was able to work it out with the client, and then later had another issue with a customer that was very near and dear to my heart. It was one of my best builder clients, who I had handled the sale of his and his wife's personal home. And he came to me and said, you know, I always tell people you're the best attorney in town, and now I have to tell you I'm a little bit disappointed in you, which obviously caught my attention. And what had happened in his case is, the home that we had handled the sale of, he and his wife had forgotten to file for portability, and we had not identified that. And because of that, they had lost all of the portability savings that could have been flowed through that house and passed forward to the next one. So after those two incidents, I decided to do some self-education, and I found out that basically what we've been doing as closing agents in Florida, and giving this little speech at the end of the closing, is a bad idea. We're only telling people about 10% of what they need to know, and we're telling it to them too late. The two biggest issues that involve portability have to be identified at the beginning of the closing, not the end. And we as closing agents generally have the information right in front of us to identify these issues and point them out to our clients. So about 3 years ago, I started sending a little warning letter out to people with a worksheet showing them if their market value was off. And what would generally happen is people would call me up and be upset and say, well, what am I supposed to do about this? And how do I fix this? And I realized one day that the problem is I was warning them about the issues, but I wasn't offering them a solution. So that's how Florida Homestead Check was born. Our chief information officer, Cassie Vargas, has spent the last 15 years working with property appraiser offices developing their computer-aided mass appraisal systems. We call them CAMA systems. And so she's very familiar with how their systems work. We have a deep understanding of how property appraisers work, how their software works, and we understand why the errors that happen. It's just part of the way that they do business. And what Florida Homestead Check has done is we've created a very powerful tool using artificial intelligence, algorithms, and some mega databases. We have developed a analytical tool which will go in and analyze whether or not a person has made a mistake or has a valuation error on their homestead filings. And if it identifies an issue, it will point out to them what the issues are. And best of all, it will offer a solution. It will tell them exactly how much money it is costing them, and it will tell them step-by-step instructions for how to fix the problem. So we don't just stop there. We also have a counseling center. We call them the homestead counselors, where when people get homestead checks that show a problem, the very first button they can push is call the counselors for help. And they can call up and run questions past them and get solutions and ideas and instruction. But we find that most people just don't want to deal with it themselves. When I started the company, I thought probably 9 out of 10 people would want to read the instructions and fix the issues themselves, but we found that it's pretty much the other way around. 9 out of 10 don't want to deal with it. And that's where we have our tax consulting service. We call them the homestead doctors, that they will go in and fix all of these issues for people. And most of the important issues like market value that involve a lot of money, we will fix on a contingency fee basis, where if we're not able to get the savings that we identify, they don't have to pay us, but whatever it is that we get, they share with us 50-50 those savings for the first year. The rest is theirs for the rest of their lives, and they don't have to pay us any upfront money. The only thing that they do have to pay for is if an appraisal is required, they have to pay for their appraisal. And we've built a network of 200 appraisers around the state that understand what we're after, what we're doing, and are very efficient and cost effective with the appraisals. So we go around the state now talking to closing agents like you, telling them, first of all, about these issues, because most closing agents aren't even aware of these issues, that these things need to be identified at the beginning of the closing, and more importantly, they've got to be handled before the closing happens, or the savings are wiped out permanently. We have developed an addendum that allows you to go ahead and close in most instances and let the most important of these issues be fixed after the closing. So you should almost never have to hold up a closing because one of these issues has been identified, and our special addenda that we've created has been approved by the Florida Department of Revenue General Counsel's office and accepted by value adjustment boards around the state. So we can basically handle everything from A to Z that has to do with homestead. What has been going on is everybody moves to Florida and they just buy their home or sell their home, and they just roll those tax payments into the mortgage payment, and they figure everything's okay. And unfortunately, it couldn't be further from the truth. There are literally hundreds of thousands of senior citizens in Florida who pay property taxes who are completely exempt. Tens of thousands of deployed military that don't get the discounts they're supposed to get for being deployed. There are over 30 different exemptions that are available under Florida's laws, and the only one we've ever been telling them about as title agents is the $50,000 standard exemption. So one of the things that a homestead check does is it will analyze what exemptions the buyer or the seller qualify for, and it will point out to them what those exemptions are. If it's the seller, it'll tell them if they failed to file for it. If it's the buyer, it'll give them a heads up so that they file properly, so that everyone gets off on the right foot. So the homestead check is also a powerful educational tool. Instead of a one sheet little paper that you have pink or green to show that it's important, it tells them everything that they need to know about homestead filing, and it gives them links to every form that they're going to need. So say they're a disabled veteran, it has the links to the service-connected disability forms that they'll need to file. It's 100% comprehensive. So it's a huge value add for what you do for your clients. If at the beginning of the closing process, you recommend that they get a homestead check and they do it, you don't have to worry. You know that all issues have been addressed and identified and pointed out to their attention. You also know that they're getting 100% education on how they need to handle their homestead filings. And most importantly, that education and that information is not coming from you, it's coming from us, a separate company. And that's important because if you're sitting here saying, well, what's the big deal with this? This isn't my job, this isn't my liability, you're wrong. The property appraisers will tell the customer that it's the title agent's responsibility, and the realtors will certainly tell them the same thing. And we've done a lot of legal research, and there is a substantial amount of liability for closing agents, especially because we have been engaging in this practice for so long at giving this little speech at the end of the closing. So we've been kind of dipping our toe into the water and giving everyone the impression that we're handling these issues for them and then turning around and not handling the issues for them. So we strongly suggest that a homestead check should become a regular part of every closing. There are two ways that you can work with our company. The first way is we will be glad to provide you with a free form. It's called a tax notification and hold harmless form that you can simply, when you open a file and you're working with a buyer or a seller, provide them with a copy of that form and say, there are some important issues regarding Florida's property tax laws, and we very much recommend that you carefully read this form and sign the back page and give it back to us. That form will tell them what the issues are. It will point them to a solution in getting a homestead check. It will emphasize that you are not handling these issues for them despite what they or their realtor might think. And lastly, it holds you harmless from any liability related to these issues. So at a minimum, you can employ the use of that form if you want to. It's free. You just have to sign a one-page license agreement. And we have attached a copy of what the form looks like for you to see in the handouts. The second way that you can participate with us is as a real estate professional, rep for short. And that's what we're all about today in our integration with Closer's Choice. My office has used Closer's Choice for many years. And if you choose to become a rep, a real estate professional with us, it allows you to initiate the homestead checks. It also automatically gives you copies of the checks when they're generated. And it allows you to earn some legal CFPB, DFS, RESPA compliant additional earnings. You are doing a little bit of research when you incorporate homestead checks into your closing practice as a rep. You're pulling a little bit of information off the property record card and inputting it for us. And as such, you are entitled to be paid for your time. And it's a fee for service of $25 for the buyer and $25 for the seller. So you can make an additional $50 per file. Additionally, we have our homestead monitoring program, which will follow the customer throughout their life if they sign up for it and protect them from missing out on valuation changes and exemptions that they become eligible for at a cost of $75 a year. So for example, what if someone files for a homestead when they're 61? How do they know that when they're 65 and their income falls below $30,174 a year, how will they know that they've become eligible for an additional $50,000 exemption, as well as all the other exemptions? How will they know if the property appraiser just suddenly drops their homestead filing off, which we see happen quite often? How will they know if there's a big change in their market valuation. That happens quite often. The Homestead Monitoring Program will track that every year. And every year that they put through a homestead monitoring order, if it came off of the homestead check that your office generated, you will continue to be paid $15 of that $75, and that will create additional income for you in the future, even when these folks are not at your office doing closings. So it's a way to build residual income. I, as a real estate attorney, am still charging the same settlement fee that I was charging in 1996. So it was very near and dear to my heart to build in a way for closing agents to be able to legally earn some additional income. So I hope you'll enjoy that. Being a rep with Florida Homestead Check also offers you some incredible marketing opportunities. When you get a homestead check, after it has come in, the client will have it, you'll have a copy, and it gives you an opportunity to call them up and say, hey, Mr. Smith, we see that your homestead check came back red, and we see it involves $3,500 a year, so we just really want to encourage you to call the counselors up, call the doctors up, work with them on resolving this, because this is very important and you need to address it right away. It makes it look like you really care about them, like you're watching out for them, and just makes you look great, not only to them, but to their real estate agents as well. And one of the most beautiful things is most of you probably get your closings from the listing agents, and the buyer is at your office because they're just along for the ride. Well, when you initiate a homestead check for a buyer, the buyer, when they get the link that allows them to put their personal information in, one of the first questions they'll be asked is, do you still own your prior home? And if they say yes and put in the information, it'll run a homestead check on that home as well. So you imagine when your buyer, who's not even doing that closing with you, finds out they've got a low market value or misportability on their home that saves them a substantial amount of money, and it was discovered through your office. It makes you look like a hero to the buyer and to their real estate agent, and could land you a new real estate client. So there's a lot of advantages to being a rep. We hope that you'll sign up. We have 8 sales representatives throughout the state. And if you're interested, you'll see the last slide will show you how to contact us, and we'll have a sales representative come give a full presentation to your office. I've attached an introduction letter to you, which in 7 pages will explain to you as clearly as possible and as short of a format as possible the details of some of these things that I've just covered, so that you can, at your leisure, go through and read a little bit more about it. We've also created a course that's been submitted for CLE and CE credit that is currently being approved, called What Every Real Estate Agent or What Every Real Estate Professional Should Know About Florida's Homestead Laws. And if you would like one, you can contact us, and we'll be glad to send you a copy of that course that goes into a lot more detail. So before we integrated with Closer's Choice, the time involved in inputting closing check orders for the buyer and seller is about 5 minutes for the buyer or for the seller, and a little bit less time for the buyer. That's really taking your time. Now that it's integrated with Closer's Choice, it's at least twice as quick. So when you look at $25 versus the time that you have to spend, it's a pretty good hourly rate, and we hope you'll enjoy it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead at this point and let my technical team show you 2 videos. One is an animated video that sort of explains this a little bit, if you want to take a breath from me telling you about it and watch it in a more enjoyable format. And the second one is our little promotional video to title agents that is a little bit short of an explanation. So enjoy it, and I'll turn it over for the videos now.
As a real estate professional, you probably already know that on average, Floridians only buy or sell a home once every 12 years. So they may not realize that Florida's laws provide important protections and savings to residents who purchase a home and file for homestead. It may sound simple, but our research indicates that about 75% of the time, Floridians don't maximize their homestead savings. This costs homeowners in Florida billions of dollars every year in lost property tax savings. So whether someone is buying or selling a home in Florida, it's crucial that they understand how to file, when to file, and how to maximize and manage their homestead savings. And they rely on you to guide them through the complexities of such an important decision. That's why Florida Homestead Check was created. We are experts in homestead laws, and we can provide you and your customers with a homestead check in a few easy steps. Visit FloridaHomesteadCheck.com, enter some basic information about the property, and you'll quickly receive a complete analysis of your client's homestead savings. If there's a problem, we'll clearly explain what it is and how to fix it. We offer counseling sessions to homeowners that need extra help, and your customers can even hire us to fix problems for them. Our service is extremely affordable, and if you're a real estate professional and take the time to fill out the information for a homestead check, we'll even share the fee with you. Best of all, our services will help bolster your professional reputation. Your customers will really appreciate the savings that they discover when they receive their homestead check. To learn more, please allow our sales representative to share some more valuable information with you about Florida Homestead Check.
On average, I handle about 3 closings a day at my firm. It can be very hectic for my clients that are signing so many papers in such a short amount of time. We have to get everyone in and out within about an hour for a closing. So unfortunately, that doesn't leave a lot of time for us to explain Florida's complicated property tax laws. Many times there are issues that have to be fixed before closing, or else we can lose valuable tax savings permanently. And it's really important for our buyers to get off on the right foot with having their homestead filings done properly. Life became so much better for us title agents when Florida Homestead Check came along. I feel like I'd be doing my clients a disservice if I didn't explain the importance of getting a homestead check done ahead of time. As soon as I'm notified about a closing, I immediately reach out to my client to let them know the importance of getting a homestead check. By getting a homestead check done before closing, my clients can ensure they are filing properly and then are able to transfer any and all savings to their new home. FloridaHomesteadCheck.com makes it incredibly easy for my clients to know what kind of savings they might be missing out on and how to correct it before we go to closing. Not only are they saving thousands of dollars every year, it's also a great way for me as a title agent to earn a little extra on the side. I'm a Florida title agent, and Florida Homestead Check helps me to save my clients thousands of dollars every year.
Go to FloridaHomesteadCheck.com and order your first homestead check today.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed those. And if you're sitting here saying, why the heck have I never heard of this before? And why has this never been an issue before? The reason is that you have to remember that the portability laws were just passed in 2008. And those of us who remember the Great Recession remember that at the end of 2008, everyone's market values had been wiped out. So there was no portability to transfer for several years after the Great Recession. But this 10-year run-up in values that we've had has created a gigantic issue. And we figure that right now in Florida, there is about $5 billion a year in property tax overpayment by folks who either aren't claiming exemptions that they're eligible for. Our research indicates that a third of people who are eligible to file for homestead never even file for it. So a lot of these people walk out of your office after the little homestead speech and they don't even file for a homestead. There's people that probably 8 out of 10 people don't even know about or file the additional paperwork to file for portability. and almost no one knows about having their market value adjusted before they sell. So I know that this seems new, but it involves a huge amount of money, and it's a real opportunity for you to be of service to your clients. And if you're wondering how much it costs, the cost for a homestead check is $125 if it's run through you as a rep. If it is done directly on the website, then it's $100. So we think that you'll find that an incredible value. There is a lot of computer technology behind being able to get the price down to that, which is less than a fourth or a fifth of what it used to cost if you could find an attorney who was capable of doing that level of analysis. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Alexa, and she'll give you the demo.
Thanks, Blake. I know we're running short on time, guys, so I'm going to try to be as quick as possible with showing you the integration, so bear with me, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So first things first, we need to be in a file. So this is going to basically be the file you'll do with order entry. You're going to have basically all the information you would from the contract in here. I do want to point out a few things before we actually start ordering, though. The first is when you get set up with Florida Homestead Check, you will need to provide the same email address that you use in Closer's Choice. Now, this is the same email address we use for your services gateway. So if you want to check to see what that is, we're going to come up here to the Edit button right above the Services Gateway toolbar. We're going to select Personal Settings, and then we're going to select Manage Credentials here in the Services Gateway section. So this username right here is the email that you're going to want to provide to Florida Homestead Check when you set up your account. That way we can kind of connect both systems. You don't need to change anything here on this screen. We ask that you don't change it. And keep in mind that this email address could be different than the one you use to email out of Closer's Choice. So always come here and check this Manage Credentials section. And again, that was in Edit and Personal Settings. All of this is also in your user guide, so if you're following along with me, that's going to be the first couple of steps there. We also do want to let you know that you should have a feature called Docs in Cloud turned on before you start using this integration. It just makes sure that we can send and receive information and documents easier. It is not an additional fee, but you do need to have it activated. So go ahead and give us a call so we can explain everything and turn that on before you start using the integration. Other than that, basically, we're just going to need a few key pieces of information in our file. The first, regardless of whether you're ordering a buyer's check or a seller's check, is that we need to know the property, obviously, because this is a Florida Homestead Check. We're going to need to check that property out. So make sure you have the property in the file. You're also going to want to make sure that you have the parcel ID in the file. So make sure that you go ahead and enter that here on the property screen as well, prior to go ahead and starting your check with Florida Homestead Check. So make sure you have that information filled out. You're also going to want to make sure that depending on which check you're ordering, buyers or sellers, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of those buyers or sellers information in your file first. So go ahead and add their first and last names, their phone numbers, and their email addresses. Now, for buyers and sellers here, depending on which check you're ordering, the very first buyer, so here Whitney Houston, if it was my seller, Robert Redford, that is who is going to receive the email notifications currently. So go ahead and make sure that at least they have their email address filled out here before we do any ordering. Okay. Lastly, for your sellers, you're going to want to make sure that you have your potential closing date and your sales price on the file. So go ahead and make sure that that information is put in here in your order entry or your loan and dates screen as well. And I'll show you kind of how that flows through to the order form in just a moment. So now that we've got everything in our file, and again, this is going to be the same information that you're going to probably already be entering from order entry. So this should not be any surprise to you. You should have all of this data. When we're ready to place our order, we're going to come up here to our Services Gateway toolbar up here at the top, and we're going to select the Florida Homestead icon right here. It's going to open up your order window. And so we're going to need to just make a few selections here before we actually submit our order. The first is we're going to select our representative. And as we mentioned earlier, that's going to be you all as the title agent. So you should see your name listed down here in the bottom as your email address. You're just going to select whoever is going to be the actual representative on this file. If you don't see your name listed here, go ahead and come over here to the right in the Add Remove Representative section. Click the drop-down menu, and this is going to pull all of your associated users with your agency from our system here at Closer's Choice. So if you see somebody that you need to add, go ahead and highlight them. Click the big green Add button. It'll say that we've added that marketing rep, and then go ahead and you should see them over here now in the list to choose from. You also have below a CC email address. So if you need another person CC'd on this email, you can also include their name here. It will automatically default with whoever's email address you selected in the representative drop-down menu. Then you see over here your property information to the left. So that pulls in from your file, so you don't have to type that every time. If you see that there's a mistake here, we suggest you always go back into your file to correct it. That way you don't have to type it twice. And then that change will flow through to this order window after you make that change. If you're ordering a buyer or seller check, you're going to want to distinguish that here in the check type section. It defaults to buyer, so if you're not going to be ordering a buyer check, go ahead and switch this over to seller just by selecting the drop-down menu. And it will display your buyers or your sellers from your file along with their email addresses in that bottom section. So you'll notice if I have a buyer check that I'm ordering, essentially all I need to indicate now is who's paying for this homestead check. And you have three options here. The first is that your agency is paying for it now and you're going to be invoiced. When that happens, we're going to go ahead and place on the CD in your H section a charge for the Florida Homestead check with the payee as you, the settlement agent, for reimbursement purposes. Now, you can also choose to pay it at closing. And so in that case, that would be again, it goes as a charge on your H's on your CD automatically, but we are going to make the payee Florida Homestead check. Lastly, you have the option to have the client pay for the Florida Homestead check separately. In that case, Florida Homestead check will contact the client directly for payment purposes. So make sure you indicate which of these options you'd like. And then all you need to do is click the green Submit button. And that will submit your order over to Florida Homestead Check. They'll start working on it and send you back any information you need. Okay. Once you place an order down below, you'll see your confirmation essentially. So you will receive a confirmation email from Florida Homestead Check, but you'll also receive here in Closer's Choice confirmation pretty instantly. So you'll have the order ID, the type of check you ordered, who ordered it, the date it was ordered, and the status. And the status will update as the check moves through Florida Homestead Check and they send that information back to you. So you can always check that status for an update there. Now, let's say I want to order a seller check. I am going to come over here to seller and switch that over. My sellers, keep in mind, again, they populate below. But now we need to answer a few additional questions based on that property card. So here we want to indicate the month and year that the person purchased their property. And if you click the drop-down menu, you'll see that there is a calendar that you can choose from. And just navigate using the arrows and select the date. If the property record card already shows a homestead exemption, you're going to want to indicate yes to that. And if the property record card shows any values for the current year, you're going to want to say yes, which will open these fields down below, and you're going to want to put that information in here. So we're going to put in the market value and the assessed value here. So we're going to say this one's about 440, and this one's going to be 438. Okay, the sales price and the closing date, notice those pull in from your file, so you don't need to type those. You've already put that in Closer's Choice. We know that information. We're going to pull that through for you. Again, then you just need to indicate how this homestead check is being paid. You have the same three options again with varying levels of how that it looks on the CD or whether it's printed on the CD at all. Then all you need to do is click the green Submit button. And again, you place that check with Florida Homestead Check. They're going to start working on that order right away. Again, you will receive an email from them with a confirmation of your order. So you'll have that in hand. If you are receiving that invoice, they'll send you that invoice for your records. And then once the Florida Homestead check is done, we've got some options here. You'll notice that there is a refresh button here. So that refresh button, that will pull in that completed check for you. You will know if that check is completed because, again, you will receive an email from Florida Homestead Check and your status will change. Okay, so once you receive that status change, you'll know that that document is ready for you. So I'm going to switch over to my file, pretend this is the same file, and we've got word that the finished check is back. Once I come here into Florida Homestead Check, you'll see my status. If you'll see here, it's changed to FHC sent. That's your Florida Homestead Check is sent. So you only need to click the refresh button, and then we automatically have that actual Florida Homestead Check in your saved documents in Closer's Choice. So if you'll look here, there's my Florida Homestead Check for this file. So it's automatically saved there. If I need to email it, print it, do whatever I need to with it, I can. Again, you can access that through the Documents button or the Viewer button here. If I were to go to my CD, again, I'm going to show you in the H's, that charge will show up. And depending on who I wanted to be listed as the payee, that will also show up. So you'll see here my Florida Homestead Check shows up payable to me because I indicated I was paying it ahead of time, and the amount here. So it's automatically done for you. You don't need to add that in. So that is essentially how to order your Florida Homestead Check and bring in that finished homestead check once it's completed, and bring that into your file automatically. Also have it charged on the closing disclosure automatically for you, depending on what you have selected as your options. I know we're running a little short on time, but I do see some questions. So if you want to stick around, we're going to answer those. And so keep submitting your questions for both ourselves here at Closer's Choice and for our Florida Homestead Check representatives that are still here with us. So I'm going to put up our contact information while I'm looking through these questions. If you have any questions after the webinar, you want to get in contact with us, our information is here. So if you want to review our webinars, that information is there. Anything about the gateway, I'm your girl. Training, that would be Leanne. And for Florida Homestead Check, you have Mr. Blake Deal's information, Mr. Mike Legeza's, and then their web address as well. So let's get into some questions here. We've got a few already, but keep submitting here. So Lucy is looking for that hold harmless form. And I don't believe that we attached that. Blake, is that something that you can forward over to any of our clients who are requesting it?
Absolutely. I forgot there was a limit on the number of attachments there. So if any of you, if you sign up with us as a rep, when you sign up, there's a Create Documents tab that you'll use on our website, and it will create the notification and hold harmless form for you. And it will also create what we call a preference form that's useful with the clients also. Those will be generated if you sign up with us as a rep for as many people in your office as you want to. If you don't intend to sign up as a rep and you just want to use that form, just shoot myself an email, and I will be glad to personalize it with your logo for your operation and send it to you with its little one-page license agreement you sign that just says you understand we're providing it to you for free and as a courtesy and all that. So glad to provide it to you if you shoot me an email.
Perfect. Thanks, Blake. Kay also has a question. It sounds like it's for you guys. She wants to know, how long typically does the report take to come back to the person that ordered it?
The way Homestead Check works is it accesses a database that we have built that contains every piece of information on every property record in the state of Florida going back to 2007. In most cases, it's amazingly fast. The Homestead Check will come back in 3 to 5 minutes. In some cases, though, despite all the grooming and sanitizing of the data that we do, it will encounter incompatible fields or something, and when it does, it kicks it out to a human review basket. And occasionally, we also identify issues that kick it to a human review basket. And in that case, within 2 business days, we will generate the check. So we advise that you tell people that it's going to be 2 business days before it's received. In most cases, it will come back much quicker than that, but that's a safe thing to tell people.
Awesome. 2 business days is very fast. That's great. Let's see. Do we have any other question, guys? I think we have worked through most of them. And so I'm just perusing here. Again, if you have any questions or want to reach out to any of us, our contact information is on your screen right now. And so if you don't feel comfortable or you forgot your question, go ahead and reach out to us after the webinar. And I don't see any other questions, and I value y'all's time. So we're going to go ahead and end the webinar here. Feel free to reach out to us. Go ahead and check for the recording of the webinar afterwards on our website. And there is a short survey that you will see pop up as soon as you close out. Please, please, please go ahead and take the time to do that. I literally can do it in like 2 minutes. It's very few questions, but we do look at that feedback and we try to incorporate that as much as we can. So it would be very helpful to us if you could. And then look for some more webinars from us. And please reach out to our partners at Florida Homestead Check to see all of the great things that they're doing over there. And thank you to Mr. Deal, Mr. Legeza, and to Bobby who joined us as well, Mr. Reagan. We appreciate you guys for jumping on here and for giving us the lay of the land.
Well,
and everyone.
Thank you, Alexa. We appreciate it. And just to close out, I had my CIO step in real quick, and she wanted me to mention that we somehow didn't mention it during the webinar, but the Homestead Check is a 2-step process. You initiate it, as Alexa has demonstrated, and what that does is it sends a link to the customer where they then open that link and enter their personal information that has to do with their income, their disability status, other things that they might be uncomfortable discussing with you, or that you as the title agent just may not know. And that is what identifies which of those 30 exemptions they're eligible for. So sorry to put that on as a PS, but thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation today, Alexa.
Of course. Thank you guys again, and thank you to all of our attendees. We hope to hear from you soon, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Take care.